Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to your own channel Me Study. I am your friend Ashutosh from I am Indore, and friends, as we all know, Me Study is your own channel initiative in which we discuss various management topics and subjects in a very simple manner. Friends, in Me Study we have different modules. We have modules on strategic management, OB, HR, strategy and operations. And I am happy to share that we have already completed set of marketing, HR and strategy. So you can see the complete book modules in our playlist. Now we are developing content on OB and operations, and we are also evaluating what more content we can develop. Today's video is video number 13 in OB series, and it is learning 2. If you have not seen learning 1, please see it so that you can understand the basic of learning, what learning is all about, its definition. And then we studied two theories of learning. One was the classical theory, and then second was the conditioning theory, Pavlov's and Skinner. I am not going to repeat those two theories. Please, you can see the playlist video number 11. Today we will go to the third theory, which is cognitive learning theory, and this theory is very important, my dear friends. That is why we will dedicate a complete video to the theory. This cognitive learning theory is also known as cognitivism. Cognitivism. According to cognitivism, learning occurs when a person's schema is combined, extended or altered. First of all, let us focus on this word schema. What is schema? The perception of an individual about the world. So see, everyone has different perception about the world. If two people are seeing the same scenery, someone will find it very beautiful, someone will find some challenges in it, because every person has different perception. Like when we discussed perception before this, what was perception? Perception was the lens through which one is seeing the world. So that lens for every person is different. So when this learning occurs, when this schema is getting combined, extended or altered, if there is some combination happening, it is getting extended means more things are there, or altered means it is getting changed, then in that case learning happens. Cognitism works on two key assumptions. First, memory system processes the information in organized manner. So cognitivism is considering that the memory system is processing everything in a very structural and organized manner. Second, prior knowledge plays an important role in learning. So what has been the prior or previous knowledge, that plays a very important role. That is basically what is cognitivism. Now let us see it through a diagram. Currently you just see the sequence. We will study each of these steps in separate slide. There is a sensory input, means through senses it goes to the sensory memory, visual memory, auditory, tactile memory. Then there are two things happening: selection attention and pattern recognition, through which it goes to this short term memory, which is known as STM. There is temporary working happening, and there are two processes in the STM. One is rehearsal, second is chunking, and then responses basically get generated. Now there is encoding, and through encoding from STM things move to the LTM, which is the long term memory, and whenever required from long term memory it is retrieved. So for example, someone asks you a question and you think for some time and then you say, yes, I have studied it, answer is this. So what is happening? Retrieval is happening. Now let us discuss all these steps step by step. First of all, we have listed the 7 steps of information processing: sensory memory, selection attention, pattern recognition, short term memory, rehearsal and chunking, encoding, long term memory. First of all, let us come to the sensory memory. So it represents the first stage of information processing by human brain. Thing starts from sensory memory. Information obtained from different sense organs. So something you are smelling, something you are seeing, something you are hearing, there will be information. It is held in this sensory memory briefly. So if it was through eyes, then visual memory. If it was through ears, then auditory memory. Till the time it is forwarded for further processing. Till the time it gets forwarded for further processing, it gets stored. Now let us take an example. An employee attends meeting with his or client regarding new project. So the information given by client is heard as well as written down by employee in form of notes. It is known as sensory memory. There is an employee, he goes to attend a meeting, there is some new client, he is giving some briefing. So he will hear some things and he will make notes. Forget about this corporate example. When you were in school, teacher was teaching some topic, you will write down that main point. So what you are doing basically when you are making this notes, so this information is getting stored in the form of sensory memory. Now comes the next step, which is selection attention. Ability of individual to select and process certain part of information and ignore irrelevant information. So whenever that client briefing was happening employee will retain information like start and delivery date, requirement of the client, and he will ignore other information which is provided. Going back to your school example, your teacher is telling many things, so you will select things which you think are relevant, which can come into exam. You will make notes, others you can ignore, because your mind can also store things up to a certain level only. This, my dear friends, is known as selection attention. Then comes the third step, which is pattern recognition. It is the process in which an individual tries to connect with information gathered by relating it with information she already stores in the memory. So some information you are getting, right? Then you will try to connect the dots, pattern recognition, with information that is already stored. The previous example which we are discussing, employee will try to recall the projects she has done with client and requirement in earlier and in the new. So person will relate. School example, you are in class 8, you are studying at one topic. Now about that topic, some prior briefing, for example, you had studied in class 6th or 7th. So you will try to connect the dots. Okay, this was like this, now this is like that. Okay, pattern. This, my dear friends, is known as pattern recognition, in which you are recognizing some pattern, making the connections, and thus help in learning. Now with all this process that we studied, pattern recognition, selection attention, things move to the short-term memory, which is basically your STM. It retains the information for a short period of time. For a very short period of time, the information is retained. At this stage, the information is processed further to make the information ready for long-term storage and responses. So here it is basically getting processed. This is a processing stage, so that the information become ready for long-term storage and response. If an employee is given an oral warning for indiscipline, it will remain mine for a short period unless action is taken. Remember your childhood days. You were very naughty. Teacher used to say, don't do this, otherwise I will punish you. I will make you stand out of the class. You will forget after some time. You will think, ma'am always says this. Now one day she becomes very angry and she actually makes you stand outside the class for 1 hour. Then that thing will remain in your memory. This, my dear friends, is the same example. If some warning is given, people will think about it, then forget it. But if the action is taken, then it remains stored in the memory. This is known as short-term memory. Next is rehearsal and chunking. So there are two types of process which help in converting short-term to long-term by encoding information. Means from that STM block to LTM block when it is moving, rehearsal and chunking. Rehearsal, just the same rehearsal which you used to do. Information repeated again and again so that it can be stored permanently in the memory. For example, you took part in a skit or a dance or drama. So before that final performance, you will be rehearsing again and again. That is rehearsal. You study a topic. Before the exam, you will revise it again and again. Revision, equivalent of rehearsal. Chunking, it is the grouping of ideas or bits of information to make the retention more easy and storable for longer period of time. So you are basically grouping and clubbing ideas so that it is becoming storable and long time it can be done. That, my dear friends, is known as chunking. Now what is the process of encoding? So encoding is the process of relating new information from short-term memory with information already existing in long-term memory to make more memorable. So something will be always there in your mind. Now you are getting more new things. So here it is basically, information is becoming relative so that encoding happens and it can be stored. Now a newly joined employee learning to operate a machine will try to recall the information at the time of training to operate the machine. This is basically encoding. And last and important is LTM, long-term memory, information for longer period of time. It is permanent storehouse and includes information which has been learned throughout life. So if someone will ask, what do you remember for school time? Some things you will remember. Then he will ask, okay, you remember in chemistry this was one formula, one equation. You will say, how can I recall, studied so many times years back. So things which you cannot recall, that are not part of LTM. Things which you can recall are part of LTM. A person working on same process for more than 3 years will have complete process stored in LTM. There is a person in accounts department. He is doing same transactions again and again, same vendors. So even if you ask him vendor code, that also will be stored in his mind. That is, my dear friends, basically known as long-term memory. So process of storing it in the information, and then that is why it is said that you should learn things in such a way that things from short-term move to your long-term memory. In long-term memory also there is limit, but by working on your mind, working on enriching your mind, you can basically enhance it. This is all, my dear friends, from today's video, and with this we complete the third theory, cognitive theory. Next, fourth will be social learning theory, and remaining topics we will do in the next video, which will be the third video on learning. If there is any confusion, my dear friends, you can write on meedu.study@gmail.com or the comment section. If you are liking, please like, share, subscribe. Thank you. Take care.